Hey everyone, welcome to our fifth and final video for the Summit Family Workshop series. This one is on PFAs, AFAs, and CFAs, which are three different types of assessments that we find in Summit. So let's talk about how they work. So do remember that power focuses are 21% of a student's grades, and these are considered essential information that are required to pass the course. So students must complete all power focuses in order to pass the course. So where are these power focuses found? They are located in this row right here beneath projects and above additional focuses. We have power focus areas. And what do the different colors mean? So blue means that the student is still working on the assessment or they have not yet been assigned the assessment. Students can work ahead, so they have access to these assessments at all points in the year. So even though the blue line is right here in this assessment that the student is currently working on, the student can take any of the assessments listed in any order that they like. Some teachers like for students to take assessments at certain times of the year so that they correspond with the material that the student's working on in the class, but students do have access to all of the assessments listed. Now we also have these green assessments. This student has 3 green PFAs because they have completed these 3 PFAs. Awesome job, student. And so the green means that they are completed. Last but not least, we have this red PFA. That means that it is incomplete, missing, and off track. It's incomplete because the student hasn't passed it yet, and it's off track because this blue line, our pacing line, has passed it. So this student should have already completed this PFA and they have not. And therefore we want to make sure that they put time into attending office hours, into studying and receiving support at home so that they can come to school, take the PFA, pass the PFA, and be caught up in their work. Now, what if we want more information about the PFA itself? We can hover over the PFA to learn more. So if I take my mouse and hover over the PFA in the year view, it gives me some information. I get the title of it. This one is B1 classification. I get the score that my student received, a 9 out of 10. I see how many times they had to attempt it. They had to attempt it 4 times, and I see the date that they passed it on, October the 27th. So with the score 9 out of 10, sometimes I get questions from families asking if their student can retake it to get a 10 out of 10. That is unnecessary. Whether your student receives an 8, 9, or 10 out of 10, they've passed the assessment and they get full credit on it. So an 8 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 has the same exact effect on your student's final grade. Therefore, as long as your student has an 8 out of 10 or higher on a PFA, they have passed it and they do not need to worry about attempting it again. All right, so what if I want even more information? Let's hover over here. So here I see that this red PFA that my student has not been scored because it has not been attempted. So we see the score has no information. We see that there's no information under attempts. And so this indicates that my student has not taken this assessment at all. And since it's past due, they should have passed it on November 1st and they did not. I want to make sure to give them some support so that they can at least start trying this assessment to see how they will do. And so whether it is green or red, you can get information just by hovering over the PFA and it will let you know the scores and attempts. Now, what if we want even more information? We can get that information by actually clicking on the assessment and it will take us into the PFA. So here I can see the title, I'm in organic compounds, and I can see the different objectives that the assessment, that the PFA assesses the student on. So there's 4 objectives that the student needs to learn to pass the PFA. And so when I click on the objective, it opens up all of these materials. And these are materials that your student can use to study. They should take notes on this information and study those notes prior to taking the PFA. One thing to note is that as your student Reads or views the different materials, little check marks appear off to the side to indicate that they have opened it. So it allows them to track which resources they have and have not used to study. So by no means should the student read and look at all of these resources. That's a lot of material. Instead, they might look at one or two and then try the assessment. And if they don't do well on that objective, they might look at one or two more to study further. So that's where our objectives are and where you can find all of the resources for studying. Also, this is a really good tool. Up at the top, there's a diagnostic quiz. So you can click start here and it will take the student through some sample questions and they can see how they score. And so the diagnostic is a really good way for them to tell if they're ready or not to take the PFA. And last but not least, I just want to emphasize this, what I was talking about earlier. The score that the student needs to pass is an 8 out of 10. Once they receive an 8 out of 10, they're done with the PFA and they can move on. A 7 or less means that they still need to take the PFA again until they pass it. All right, so that's power focuses. Let's talk about additional focuses, AFAs, which are worth 9% of the student grade. Now, students do not have to pass these assessments to pass the class, but it does increase their grade. So while the additional focuses, the AFAs, are not as critical as projects and PFAs, they are still important in the fact that they're 9% of the student's grade and necessary for them to achieve the grade that they're searching for or working towards in the class rather. So let's take a look at AFAs. Here. AFAs are located underneath PFAs and above CFAs, and we can see the list here. Now, as we talked about before, AFAs are always blue because they're not all required in the class. A student should definitely complete some of them, but if they do not complete all of them, it does not affect their ability to pass the course. However, it does affect their grade. Now, just like with the PFA, you can hover over the AFA and it will give you the same information that we've looked at before. You can click on the AFA, it tells you the objectives, it gives you study materials. It's very similar to PFAs, it's just that AFAs count as a different percentage of the student's grade. Now, if you're asking how many AFAs should my student complete, that's really dependent upon their current grade in the course and the grade that your student hopes to receive in the course. A really good way to look at the additional focus areas is each one is essentially 1 point on their final grade. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 AFAs. Each one of these are worth a point on the final grade. So these are 8 points for the student's final grade. If my student has an 88% and I really want them to work towards an A, and they really want to work towards an A, we would talk to each other and we would agree, okay, we need to pass about 2 to 3 additional focus areas to help get to that A that we hope to get. And so my student would take 3 of these, pass them, and that would help get them to the grade that they hope to achieve. And so that's a good way to look at additional focus areas. They're important information to the course. It's not required for them to pass, but it does affect their final grade and is an important component to them achieving the grade that they hope to receive in the class. And last but not least, additional focus areas are considered advanced information in the course. And so if your student is hoping to challenge themselves, to learn extra material that can help them in future courses, or if they're hoping to take an AP course in the future in the sciences, these AFAs are really important material for them to learn. All right, so that is the end of all of our material. If you have any questions, please access the Q&A form, send them in to me, and I will get the answers to you. Thank you so much for joining me through these videos. Have a great day. Bye.